more irrigation. Is that what you guys doing?
Yep.
Been out. What are you doing now?
Putting the ends on the...
These. So we added 25 cherry tomatoes, 25 peppers, 25 heirloom, just regular organic tomatoes, and then 25 more peppers here. And the corn is actually starting to come up. So, So go show me the other end. Is this system different than the other one we were using?
So this one is a bit smaller. You just push it on, the hose on, and there's no need for hose clamps. So
awesome. So that saves a little bit of time and money not having to put them in. So this is a Rainbird system that just got it at Home Depot. So 500-foot roll of 1/2 inch. Where's that on?
Sitting on the...
Oh, sitting up there. So this has a backflow preventer, pressure reducer. This is a different, not an adjustable. It's a 25 PSI pressure reducer. So hopefully it'll work once we punch enough holes in all of this to just drip and not spray out of the holes. When the water lines out in the garden start to go to a trickle, you of course immediately get into the process of what is the problem. Is like, do we got a leak in a line somewhere, or is there something going on, or I don't know, it's like something, you're just not getting pressure, you're not getting water movement. And then of course you remember changing the filters out here. So because we run water from this well, from the farm well, also feeds our shop and goes into the sink and the toilet in there, we do run just these 2-stage kind of simple filters, and that is enough sediment buildup in here to restrict the water flow massively out to the garden. So simple enough to come out here and replace this, and then we'll see if we get better water flow. Alright, let's hit the switch. See if we get water flow again. Water right here. There we go. Irrigation not going exactly as smoothly as we would like. So we've got 25 PSI pressure reducer on these lines going out here to these rows of peppers and tomatoes. We had to take it off on this side going over to the corn and running. So the lines are running about the same length. There's just obviously more holes over here on the corn, and it's slightly farther away, but we're having some challenges getting the hoses to drip out there at the end. These ones are working fine with the pressure reducer, and with only having holes every 2 feet, they're almost spraying water with a pressure reducer on it. But over here with more holes, no pressure reducer, we're just getting drips, and especially at the far end we're having a more difficult time. Had to do a quick trip to the Home Depot. They seem to have the Rainbird irrigation stuff, so just had to get a couple of more fittings. We're going to end up having to split the drip lines on the corn. Just doesn't seem that one hose going over and feeding all 4 of those lines, speed bump, is going to work. We're just not getting enough water down to the end of the line, so we're going to try splitting those into 2 separate lines off of the timer, so that each 2 rows will have their own sort of 30 or 40 minute watering period. We'll see if that solves the problem. Big challenge, truthfully, is getting these things back apart. So the way these go in, they're really not meant to come back out. And you also don't have to use, as the boys said, you don't have to put pipe clamps on here. And that's good, except if you have to get them back apart. And then it's a real challenge to twist these things back out. So see how easily, if I can get this done. Without cutting it. May just have to be that I have to cut this out of here, because they really do not, once these things go on, they do not want to come back out. No movement at all. Honestly, just went ahead and cut these off because it's really difficult to get them back off. So just put them on. They push in a little bit easier. They just don't come off very easy. All right, so we got these two done, and we're just gonna do is put a coupling in here and run a line over to the other one. So on these connectors, these ones are a little bit different. It's a kind of one of those push fittings. So you just push this inside here. All right, and with that, we now have both lines hooked up. I'm gonna see if, turn it on manually. So they're two separate systems now. We're gonna go down and see if we get water coming out at the far end of this first line. I don't know what the deal is. So we ran this through here, and we're still just not getting, I mean, what should be a fair amount of water. So we're gonna just try running this straight through here and not through the timer, and see if we actually get more water dripping out of this line if we just bypass timer, and see if there's some issue with restriction in the timer itself. Apparently the issue continues. We're just getting, I don't know why, unusually high amounts of sediment in this well. You see, I just put that in this morning. And that amount of sediment is enough to restrict flow out there for those drip irrigation lines. So we're just gonna bypass it for right now, since it's just going, for the time being, since we're just worried about the garden and not so much using water in the shop. What I may end up having to do is just put a filter on a line going into the shop and not have one out here. Take this one off, and we'll just run it wide open. I mean, sediment isn't going to hurt the garden. So you see, I just put that one in a second ago, and it already. So we're going to run this unrestricted. See if this solves the problem out there, if we can actually get the hoses dripped. This might mean that the hoses were fine and I did not need to split them into two separate lines. It's probably just that there wasn't enough water pressure going out there to run water all the way down the lines. So, all right, well, we'll see what happens. That was definitely the problem. So the filters were clogging up the water line with sediment and restricting the flow. So it was a complete waste of time to separate those out. If you look back down the line in the sun, you can see these holes are now basically spraying water down there. So we had taken off these pressure regulators in an attempt to try and increase the flow in those lines. Well, now the pump is pushing full force out here at probably about 40-50 psi. It was spraying out of the holes in the drip line. So now we're going to try putting this back on and see if we get something closer to an actual drip line. Hopefully you can see we're getting drips across, all the way across all four lines. We connected them back to one, so we now just have the one line running, and it's dripping on all of the lines really well. So that was the problem. Had a clog at the well, but now we're back in business. So this seems to be, it'll work perfectly. Well, that'll be it for this video. One of the things I think I'm gonna try and do this week, if not tomorrow, is there have been a lot of questions in the comments on our greenhouse series of videos that people put through there. So I think what I'm gonna do is just do a Q&A, greenhouse Q&A, and try and hit as many of the questions people have asked about that as possible in one video. But again, that's it for this one. Until the next video from here at St. Isidore's Farm, hope everybody is doing fantastic. Take care. God bless.